Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Welcome back to another fun episode of Next to Madison. I am your host, Madison Malloy, and on this very special episode, we are talking with actor Alex Garfin, who is unbelievably smart, unbelievably passionate, unbelievably talented. And we are talking about everything from what he's learned about playing Superman's son on the hit TV show, on the hit CW show, Superman and Lois, and also who his heroes are. Yes, they're people that are long, long gone, and what he's doing at the UN to create change to where people can get together and have conversations versus not listening to each other. So he is using his voice and his power to be able to try to unite people that think differently. And I think for such a young kid to be able to think this way and speak this way and have such awareness is such a remarkable, amazing thing. And he's got some great advice, so you'll have to stay till the end. This is a fun episode. This kid is absolutely adorable. He has got a massive, massive career ahead of him, and I can't wait to see him continue to soar as he already is. So we'll be right back after this brief message with our guest on Next to Madison.
It's your host, Madison Malloy, and I have exciting news. My new product is now available on Amazon called Color Your Way to Abundance, a 21-day manifestation guide for wealth, health, and love. This unique coloring journal will help you manifest by coloring in the affirmations while you continue to repeat them. This will help activate these affirmations so they become a reality. Grab your copy today and relax, color, and start manifesting.
We are back with our amazing guest on this episode of Next to Madison. I have got this awesome actor. You've probably seen him on the hit TV show Superman and Lois. He plays the son of Clark Kent. I'd like to welcome Alex Garfin. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Madison?
I'm good. I'm so excited to have you here. I've seen the show. You are absolutely brilliant. So give us a little bit of backstory, because you're obviously young, but you're living out the Hollywood dream. Not easy to do.
Yeah, we all wake up from our dreams every once in a while and we realize, whoa, that was a crazy one. But then we go back to sleep and everything's okay. So as long as I can keep with my eyes closed, I think I'll be doing just fine. I grew up in New York City. I went to LaGuardia High School, which is known for having a lot of actors like myself come out. The crazy thing is that I actually didn't go to all 4 years. So I graduated the year of 2021. Okay. So in 2020, obviously the world ended. And ever since then, we've been living in this Mad Max hellscape that we call the post-COVID world. So after 2020, I actually didn't go to school anymore. And in 2021, I was doing Superman and Lois for the first season. So what a lot of people don't know is that I was doing my senior year of high school the same time I was filming season 1 of Superman and Lois.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So normally how it works when you are under 18 or you're still in school and you're on set, first of all, you have a very strict amount of hours. And if you go over that amount of time, everyone's in a lot of trouble. And the slang they use for that is called you pumpkin. So if you pumpkin, you turn into a pumpkin at midnight, right? If you pumpkin, then you can't do anything more. You are off of the set for the day. Doesn't matter what you got.
Okay.
So you would rush for the whole day. A lot of times it means that you could only get 1 or 2 takes for your coverage and leave the rest for a photo double that kind of looks like you from behind when they're shooting this way. So it was a lot of pressure, but more than that, I was doing full-time school. I was filming in Vancouver, BC. We were talking about that a little bit before the show, which is 3 hours. What would be? It would be 3 hours behind New York City, meaning that my school day that would start at 8 a.m. in New York would start at 5 a.m. there. So I'd just wake up really early and I would do my 4 hours of school, like everyone else in my school, and be filming at the same time. And for some reason, I decided to take a bunch of really hard classes. I just think I wanted to challenge my every, cell in my body. So it was an interesting time. It was an overwhelming time. But most of all, when your dreams come true, nothing can stop you. There's a quote by Friedrich Nietzsche. They say, he who has a why can bear almost any how. I wasn't in the trenches or anything like that. I was doing a really cushy job in a really great place with great people, but it was a lot of work. It was a lot of sleepless nights. And no
Yeah,
matter what, through it all, there was not a second I didn't love every second.
absolutely. So how did you get this role? You just auditioned for it? Did you have TV roles before that? Like, walk us through that whole.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy process. By the time they got to me, am I still there?
You're still
I'm
here.
still here.
You're still
By the
rocking.
time, and we're still rocking, we're still rolling. By the time they got to me for this role, they were already casting such a wide net that they were putting out open calls to schools in New York City, including my own. My high school is known for having a lot of actors, but certainly no one there was professional unless they were already professional from outside means. In fact,
Yeah.
they actively discouraged you from doing professional work while in the program, mainly because you're a kid in high school and you still have to live your life. But also, it does seem to be a tendency of a lot of these acting programs to discourage you from working professionally while you're in the program. If you want to look at it on the surface, it's because they say that you need to focus on your work. I think the more nefarious reason, though, is that they know that if any one of these kids books a big enough role, they're going to drop out of the program.
True.
So, I mean, even Juilliard does that as well. So, all the way to the top of the top in the world. So, by the time they got to me, it was pretty much an open call. I did get it from my manager at the time. I went in for the other role, Jonathan, who was a football star. He's a ace in the hole kind of kid. And halfway through the script, I realized I couldn't do it, and I told her, "I'm wasting your time." And I think that was the perfect thing that my character would have said, because she
Yeah.
went to the back and she got me the script for my character, and I read for that one instead. The strangest thing, to this day, I actually don't even know if they were casting directly for my character, or they were waiting for someone to go in for that other one and just be such a bad fit that it
Yeah.
would go my route. Because I certainly didn't think of anyone, I didn't hear of anyone getting an audition for that character at the time.
Well, that's
Before then, though, I was doing some live theater.
okay. I mean, that's amazing, right? I mean, are you one of those people that believes like if something's meant for you, it will find you and you just kind of have to do your best and show up?
I'm not,
You're
to be
not?
quite
Okay.
honest. I mean, part of me wants to believe it, and part of my conscience, uh, hedges that bet at times where I tell myself that and I position myself in such a way. I think, though, we can look at it a little more like a posteriori and
Okay.
think about the fact that if you go in and you are prepared and you are ready and it is meant for you, let's say in that scenario, you have a higher likelihood of getting it. And if you didn't at all prepare and you don't set yourself up for success, you're decreasing your chances to near zero. So I think there's a good enough reason to prepare always and a good enough reason to bank on your own success to a point that you should always do so. Whether or not
Hmm.
you will put your hopes and dreams on it all working out, I believe a lot more in the idea of just working hard, and eventually that hard work will work just from the math of it all.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So you strike me as somebody who's very confident. Have you always been this way throughout your whole like childhood?
No, no, no. I'm just masking.
Well, here's the thing too, is like, I was a comedian and around a lot of comedians and there was a lot of depression and kind of dark side. Do you find that in the acting world as well?
Yeah. I think a big component of that is the downtime. Actors, if you look at their lives, on the surface, even, you see a lot of downtime between projects,
Hmm.
right? Even if you are an extremely successful actor, there's no guarantee you're going to work again or at all,
Yeah.
work again in the near future or at all. So you have a lot of downtime there. But more than that, even when you're booked on a project like I was, there are hiatus periods between seasons.
Hmm.
Or even when you're working and you're in a foreign country that is during COVID and they don't like you that much as an American up there at that time, you're not working every day. There are scenes that you're not in. So they structure it so that you have long periods of time when you're not working. When you're
Mm.
on set as an actor, at least in my philosophy, and I've seen it in others as well, if you're not unbelievably happy to be on set, you at least have this idea that it's your duty. Even when you're really tired and it's 3 in the morning and it's raining out and you're in summer clothes because the scene takes place in summer, you have a sense of, well, this is my job. I'm lucky to be here. And if you don't have that sense, I don't know if you work very long.
Yeah.
The thing is that there's so much downtime, and that leads to mental illness, in my opinion. I'm not a mental health
Interesting.
expert, but that's what I've seen.
Yeah.
So the question really does become, what do you do with that downtime? And how do you make your life worth working for something in that downtime? So
Hmm.
we actually met through Lynette, the
Yeah. The
producer of this
producer.
show.
Uh-huh.
And I've met her through some of my work at the UN. So I have a whole little circus of life outside of acting that keeps me not only sane, but fresh in the acting world, because putting yourself into a bunch of situations where you're with a bunch of different kinds of people, it means your instincts kick in and you can blend into that room. And that is the exact same skill set as acting. You can really start to
Yeah.
train that muscle through some of this diplomatic work. I think one time I was in Egypt. Don't ask me why. I was in Sharm el Sheikh. It was for COP27. And I met this guy. He was a Saudi prince. He had a whole crowd of people around him. I said, hey, can I get a picture with you? I'm an actor. I just want to get a picture with as many officials as possible. I have no idea what this man is responsible for or whatever. This picture could totally haunt me.
Right.
And I go up to him and he goes, well, who are you? I go, well, I'm an actor. I've been on a show. I've been doing this thing. This is the beginning of this whole, diplomacy career. It's not really a diplomacy career, but that
Yeah.
world.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, you're an actor. So am I. I'm a politician. Everyone laughed. It was a stupid joke. But you know what I mean is these fields are unbelievably related. Not only are they both performance-based, but they're both in the vein of becoming whatever is needed in the room. And that's also a
Yes.
dangerous thing when it becomes political, right? Because there's a process called anacyclosis. I don't know if I subscribe to it completely, but it's a really old idea that basically civilization goes through a pretty specific path. And at one point in that path, democracy turns to demagogy. And demagogy basically means people making promises to masses that are uneducated enough to believe in the promises.
That
If you
almost
have a
feels
bunch,
like what we're in right now, a little bit.
didn't want to say it.
Yeah. Well, like maybe it's going to get better, but now it's like through the past 4 years, but yeah, I could see
I
that.
think it's a broader problem than the American political cycle. It's a
Yeah.
worldwide phenomena
Yeah.
in democracy right now. And it doesn't necessarily belong to either side of the political spectrum or up, down, whatever you believe in, whatever spectrum you
Yeah.
believe in. It is a endemic problem in a lot of our societies right now that we're not valuing education enough to uphold the political end of the spectrum when they become older. So that all is to say you need something else in your brain when you're an actor. Another big thing for me is music. I write a lot of songs. I, I can announce a little bit about this, but I'm
Okay.
working on a musical with a producer friend of mine. We're going to see how far we get with it all.
I love it.
So that's why a lot of actors produce. It's why a lot of actors have charities and foundations,
Yeah.
and the other actors fall off a mental hill.
So why do you think though? I mean, because it's like, from the outside looking in, most people are like, oh my gosh, these people, beat so many odds and are living this dream. But I guess they don't realize that it is such a competitive thing. And if you're not always working, you're outdated, where you
Yeah,
make a lot of money and then you make no money.
well, that's true as well. And, very similar phenomenon with athletes as well.
Yeah.
Athletes have a bit of a different structure where they make all their money in the beginning of their life and then none for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
They have an expiration date and they get paid a lot of money here if they're lucky, and then no money here. They have to find
Hmm.
another thing to do. If you become a legend, then you can start your shoe line. You can.
Yeah.
We're all wearing Jordans. I'm not actually wearing any Jordans lately, but you know what I mean. Yeah, or
Yeah.
Shaq is in every single commercial ever. Jack is actually a really smart guy. I don't know if this is true, to be quite honest, but the story I heard about Shaq is that he discovered that Nest home security system. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so he discovered it in its infancy. He said, I'll do the commercials for your product if for a stake in the company
Yeah.
along with the paycheck. That's what made Shaq millions and millions and millions of dollars. How smart is that? Knowing that his celebrity could promote a great product and also taking a piece of that.
Well, he believed
Genius.
in it. Yeah, I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
people kind of did that, especially after who was the first one? Like 50 Cent and Vitamin Water?
Yeah.
Like he did that
Yeah.
as well. And now you see a lot of them doing that because if they do believe in the product, which they should if they're endorsing it,
Hmm.
because that sticks to that authenticity piece, then yeah, they're gonna make a lot of money.
That's a
Um,
great point. They should believe in it if they are endorsing it in the first place.
yeah, exactly, right? Because you're selling it to all your fans. Like you hope that you actually use this product, which is why I have a hard time seeing celebrities advertising drugstore makeup because I just still don't believe it. If I don't use drugstore makeup, why the hell are they using drugstore makeup? So
Yeah.
I just haven't caught on to that yet. I don't know. I feel like I'm being lied to.
It's also I also think about it when it comes to that stuff because celebrities aren't the ones mixing the product. What is the celebrity now?
They just want the paycheck.
Their endorsement doesn't mean that much to me when it comes to certain things. When it
No.
comes, like if it's a travel influencer and they're doing stuff about hotels, I actually believe that
Yeah.
because their whole life is at stake there when they're staying at a hotel and God knows where. But if it's Rihanna has that beauty line, I don't know. Maybe she does use it. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, hers is a little more high end. I mean, I think it's good, but yeah, it's like all these
Yeah.
celebrities,
I
have
don't
these
know anything about it, to be quite honest. I
product line.
I, I
Yeah.
don't I don't wear makeup, obviously. So
Well, not unless you have to. Don't they put makeup on you for your role? Like
you
some
know
just
they
to even things out?
they actually put a red filter over the show.
Wait, what?
They put a red filter over the show. It's
Over the
something a lot of shows
camera.
do. Yeah, over the camera.
So
Yeah,
the lens
they
has a
did it.
red filter?
There's a bit of a red tinge. I couldn't. Red is not the right word. They
Okay.
color correct it in such a way that it looks really interesting. But that also on my face specifically, because I have really red lips,
Okay.
it made me look like I'm wearing lipstick. So they had to put foundation on my lips, and that was the majority. I didn't really have beard to cover, and I don't really get zits that often. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
So they just covered my lips with foundation every day. That was my makeup for the show. Isn't that ridiculous?
Wait, so are you telling me that the men don't have to wear makeup anymore because of these filters on these cameras?
No, no, no. Normally do. I just happen to have good skin, and there's nothing really to cover up yet. I'm sure when I'm
Okay.
older, I'll have to.
Okay, because the older actors, obviously Superman, your dad in the show, he has to wear.
Yeah. Well, he wears some makeup. Also, if you're an older male actor or female actor as well, they want to kind of breathe life back into your face.
Oh,
People get gray when they're older. It's a natural process of aging, but
it of
a
course.
lot of times in media, people don't, it doesn't jive well with the camera or whatever it is. So they'll put the orange on you. Uh, it's
What's
not
the orange?
orange.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like they put like Trump does it, like the
It's like a
face.
filter.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's just like they put the stuff on their face. It makes people look younger. I'm not a makeup artist. I couldn't tell you.
The spray tan.
It, it's not a spray tan because it's not like a spray tan, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a makeup equivalent.
Interesting. So you're telling, yeah, because it's like when you see, these TV movies and TV shows and you see these older, actors or actresses, like they do seem to look younger than they probably should. Now, granted, they have access to all the procedures in the world and doctors, but
Mhm.
I think some of them are trying to age more gracefully because no, everybody's going to start looking the same, and we need actors that look like grandma and grandpas, not a
I agree
six-year-old
with
trying to be
that.
25.
Well, a big part of the musical is when we start casting for it, I really want the people to look like normal human beings. First of
Yeah.
all, I think it expands your talent pool. You're going to find more talented people because it's not that narrow cross section between looking good and also being talented. And
Yeah.
two, I think it's more relatable for the audience. There's no reason that these
Yeah.
characters in the play should have to look good. It's not a play about actors, it's not a play about models. So,
Right. And can you tell us about this play? Is this a play that you're writing, you're producing, you're acting
yeah,
in?
so I'm maybe not acting. We'll figure that out. But right now, I'm writing and producing along with my other friend, Alexander Robertson. We're
Okay.
working on something. We'll see where it goes. It's so early in development. It's kind of hard to talk about.
Okay.
I probably shouldn't talk about it as well, but because I'm EPing it with him, it's
We'll have you back
no one's
on
my
when it
boss.
releases.
You know,
Yeah,
yeah, no
exactly.
one's my boss yet. So, yeah, we're writing the songs for it right now. We have the first act pretty hammered out. We got to break the second soon. It's pretty
Okay.
fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
it's
I love
something to
that.
keep your mind going, keep
Yeah,
you in a
it's
creative direction, keep you fulfilled. And to be quite honest, my plate is getting quite full with these side projects, which I love. I really
that's
do.
good. It keeps you out of the mental health
And more than that,
blunder.
these are things I care about. So
Yeah.
not only does it maintain the maintenance of my daily life and my mental health, but also I feel like I'm contributing something. Maybe not with
Yeah.
the musical artistically, I suppose, but with these other programs, I do feel like I'm contributing something to the cultural zeitgeist that's needed,
Yeah.
specifically in those activism realms.
That's amazing. All right, so let's
Yeah.
go back to your role, as Clark Kent's son.
Hmm.
So did you grow up watching Superman when you were little?
Mm-mm. Not at all. I don't know very much about him at all. I mean, I know about him now, but at the time, I
Yeah.
didn't know very much about him. By the
Okay.
way, to this day, people come up to me with random Superman facts that I've never heard. I don't know anything about. As a kid, the only Superman or the superhero media I've ever consumed was as a kid. I used to watch 1966 Batman on like the DVD set.
Okay.
That was as far as I ever got. When I got this role, I still hadn't ever seen a Marvel movie.
Wow.
I have now seen both Black Panther and Iron Man. So I'm
Okay.
getting there.
Yeah.
They're both good. I really like them both. I've heard the rest aren't as good as those two. But
Okay.
both of those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very disconnected. As a kid, I was also a huge fan of Star Trek. So I understand the kind of comic booky obsession because I
Hmm.
had it with Star Trek. It was just in
Yeah.
a different vein. And by the way, almost all the actors on my show have never really interacted that much with superhero media. And I think a
Wow.
big part of that is because they didn't want people that had preconceived notions of these characters.
Oh,
It's how you do it differently.
yeah. No, I like that. So what have you learned about Superman that you admire? The
Well,
character, not the actor.
yeah, I understand. Here's the thing about Superman, right? The one word they always use to describe Superman's aura is hope. And I
Mm.
always thought that was a little stupid, quite
Okay.
honestly. Because, look, I'll put it this way. One of my really, really good friends, Rainbow is her name. She's another actress. She's unbelievably talented. She's on a show called School Spirits. You got to check it out.
Okay.
So she has a friend. I'll name him John for now to keep him anonymous. Not that I'm saying anything bad about John, but basically, Rainbow and I were talking and talking. We're going back and forth forever. And, I'm just complaining about my life, right?
Yeah.
And John, her other friend, he's like this gorgeous man. He's 6'2". He has parents that were in the industry, so he got a really easy start. His life is so successful. Everyone loves him. Just everything goes right for John. And I was just like on the pause, like convention of Rainbow, saying,
Yeah.
I hate all these things about my life. Why is everything so hard for me? And she goes, well, you know, John just has the best outlook on life, you just talk to him and you just feel great. And I go, yeah, if I was John, I would have a great outlook on life. He does. What does he have I'm sure he has his own struggle. What does he have to complain about? I think that was Superman. Of course, you're hopeful. You get to fly away.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But
I'm
no,
on the ground. The
yeah.
guy, he almost killed my family. My house is a wreck. Of course, you're hopeful. Goodbye. Here's the thing, though. Over the course of the show, what you learn from Superman is responsibility. He doesn't need the responsibility of a family, but he loves them. He takes upon himself to have that responsibility. He doesn't need to save the world, but he does. He doesn't
Hmm.
need to care, but he does. And finally, at the end of Superman and Lois, Superman gets old and he dies. Spoiler alert.
Okay.
He gets a human heart from General Lane. He grows old and dies. Really interesting way to end the show. They've never done that with Superman before. and he has hope. And I think something about him being mortal and powerless, that substantiates the hope. And that is something I've learned from him. That responsibility begets hope. And I actually gave a speech to
Yeah.
that effect at one point, about how hope is our scaffolding. It's much, much more than it is our blueprint.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, I
So,
mean, yeah, that's amazing. So is the show ending now? Is it gone?
mhm.
It's done?
It's done. Our final episode aired 3 weeks ago,
Okay.
believe it or not.
So what is next for you?
Well, can't talk about very much when it comes to the acting stuff
Okay.
because that stuff, there are people above me that absolutely will kill me. But
Okay. Yes, yes.
um, when it comes to these other projects, I think we can expect hopefully a musical, maybe in a couple of years.
Okay,
Uh,
cool.
I think we can expect No to Ask, which is a project I'm going to be launching pretty soon, which I haven't announced fully yet, so I can't announce it again here. That's going to launch, so watch out for that. And
Okay.
we can also expect, uh, well, this summit I'm putting together in April to hopefully happen here. I'm putting that together as well. And that summit is going to be about disinformation, and I'm putting it together at the UN. I'm going to be pairing off influencers that are particularly involved in activism with disinformation experts so that they can know what to look out for when it comes to disinformation on the internet.
Interesting. Okay, so is that what you're doing with the UN? I was going to go into that next.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm working with World Information Transfer WIT. They're an NGO. They have a
Okay.
big internship program, and they put on these summits around every year or so about health and environment. But instead, this year, I'm pulling it in this direction where it's going to be about disinformation or informational awareness. And basically, I'm going to try to get as many of these activists together in a room and pair off with disinformation experts so that they can better their activism and make sure what they're posting is true. Because a lot of people
I
trust
know.
these activists. And not that they're
Mm-hmm.
untrustworthy or that their intentions are in the wrong place. It's just that they're usually not the most reliable source of information.
No, because a lot of
So,
it's opinion based, and opinion is not fact.
yeah,
It's simply an
e-
opinion.
exactly. And a lot of times when it comes to these infographics on social media, they're specifically designed to grab your attention. And the way they do that is by falsifying
Mm.
or misleading. And foreign governments are taking advantage of this to
Of course.
great, great
Yeah.
effect. So, look, I think one thing that I've realized over the course of Superman and Lois, because also a big part of it is that I get to travel a lot to do these comic book signings and whatnot,
That's so fun.
is that most people are incredibly good intentioned and they'll work hard for those intentions. The communication is off, and the education around communication is off.
Mm.
We vilify other people, not only on the other side of the world, but now within our own country to the point that we don't talk to them. And the one thing I always hear
Right, which is
when
so
speaking on
sad.
this is that I don't want to talk to them. They won't listen to me. And I think that's the wrong way to communicate. Because if you're going into it thinking they won't listen to me, you're not even asking the question, am I listening to them?
Very well said. Now,
So,
you have to fault because this has all started. The main culprit of all this crap and this
yeah.
divide is the media. The media,
Yeah.
I don't think you
Yeah.
wake up and you get out of bed and you say, that person doesn't think like me. I hate them. They're this, they're that. But over the years, the media has gone in and fabricated so many stories and opinions that people don't know how to think for themselves. So that's what has caused people not to communicate because then they turn on the TV and they watch this person that doesn't really give a crap about them, but they think they do. And they listen. And that's why I'm just thinking like if we only had factual news and no opinion, would this divide in this communication be as horrible as it is now? My
Well,
hunch is no,
look,
but
I
I
think when
could
it
be
comes to the
wrong, you know?
media, it's a component, but I think it's hard to blame the entire media when really it's just misuse of media. Okay, media in itself is not inherently a bad thing. In fact, it's a great way to
Oh no, of
uh,
course, but like
provide
there's just a lot of
information for people.
propaganda. Yeah.
There's a lot. There are a lot of opinions throughout the media. Absolutely.
Yes.
And a lot of times they masquerade as fact. Whether that's
Exactly.
something endemic to nowadays, I don't necessarily think so. I think media has always had an inherent bias. And the
Yeah.
trick really is not how can we say screw the media, but not that I'm saying you're saying this, by the way, but
Yeah, I was like,
occasionally
because I
that's what
still
you
need to
come
get on the
across.
media.
Right. I it's not screw the media, it's how can we use the media to the benefit of the majority
Yeah.
of people.
Yes.
And how can we make that transition and how can we better educate the average person so that they know how to consume the media that they're seeing? Because on a big part of this as well, and I know I've said it a couple of times, is education, and that's
Hmm.
coming from someone that didn't have that much of a formal education. I myself went through, technically it was 13 years of public school, but as we were saying before, the last 2 years weren't really there. And
Yeah,
within
but
those 13 years of public school, a lot of times it wasn't very well put together. Now, that's not a fault of the school system. I mean, it can be a fault of the school system, but a lot of times it's the fault of the larger government when it has to do with the school system. The fact that the
yeah.
school system can be so lost in the political fray.
Well, exactly. And there's a lot of stuff waking up now about the education system and how, it's designed to make you a great employee. It's designed to make sure you work for the man. It's not designed to get you out of the matrix, to get you out and freedom. I work in mindset and law of attraction, so I'm very against like brainwashing and I'm very against like get out of the media, get out of the education system. Like know your stuff, be educated, but also have the ability to think for yourself. And so
You
I
know,
think like for
yeah,
me, it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but they've all come true. So I don't know what to say. But I think it's like the disinformation. It's like when anyone tells me something like, oh, but I saw it on the news, I'm like, well, then it's probably not true. That's where I've gotten to.
right. And that's
And a
the
lot of
problem as
people
well.
have.
It is that people become disenfranchised from legacy media as well.
Hmm.
And that's a big issue, is that we don't know what to trust. And
We
now
don't.
we're in a state that we were originally trying to protect ourselves against with the Constitution. In my
Right.
mind, the First Amendment of the Constitution was built upon thousands of years of history that if you were to shut down or censor a newspaper or not just a publication, but also just,
Or censor
some sort of
anyone.
free,
Yeah.
some sort of line of thinking, that line of thinking would go away because it's so easy in an underabundance of information to make information go away and be silenced. That was the
Right.
idea, right? Nowadays, we have an inverse problem. We have an overabundance of information. How exactly we deal with that, I don't know. I can't say I have all the answers. I think there's a social, an economic, and a political level to it. And all
Right.
three have to interact in such a way that they can work in concert to try to avoid the situation that we're in right now. But
Hmm.
it's quite scary because we're facing these problems around the world that are inherently problems of communication. When now we have the technological capacity to be beyond them. And that's an
Yeah.
interesting fact about humanity as well, that we've never had more resources. We've never quite had this level of development across the world. But what we're doing with it, it seems to be we're dividing. And that leads us back down to a path that we've been before. And it's scary.
Well, it is. I mean,
The world ended already a couple of times, right? So in the
yeah.
Bronze Age, around it was almost 10,000 years ago, uh, there was a global civilization out of Egypt and Crete and all
Yeah.
throughout that region of the world, right? They were building structures that were so tall and so mighty that we only beat them in the 1800s, right? The Great Pyramids of Giza were only surpassed in height by human-made structures by the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
They had a society that had advanced mathematics and trade, a lot of the components we have nowadays. What happened is that there was a breakdown of communication, there were climate disasters, and there were these people called the Sea Peoples that came in and destroyed the place. We don't know that much about the Sea Peoples because people stopped writing down things.
Well,
The
you
history
said
started getting
sea
lost.
people, like
The Sea Peoples.
SEA?
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know anything about them. That's our name for them in the historical record.
Interesting. I don't really know much
So much,
about them, but wow.
so much history was lost because the world ended. It collapsed. It's not the first time this has happened. I'm not saying that we're down that path. I don't think we'll ever necessarily be back to, you know, the that era of history. But
Well, maybe not in our lifetimes, but maybe in a
it's
thousand
it's
years.
it's a recipe, you know.
Yeah.
Human beings get really far, and we can either choose to cooperate with one another and listen to one another and do the hard things, or and live. We do the hard things and live an easy life, or eventually we're going to do the easy thing and end up living a hard life.
Very well said. That's one of my favorite
So
sayings. Yeah.
yeah, look, honestly, again, I think the majority of the problems just lie in communication, and that the fact when I was in West Virginia, this is one example. The people there thought that it was not even worth talking to someone from the coast, and then when I'm over here with a group full of people from the left, they're saying it's not even worth talking to someone in West Virginia. They don't know anything, and the
Oh
education
my
level there
gosh.
is usually very similar. Usually, a great indicator of education level is how much you're going to shut people out.
It's like an ignorance on both coasts or both areas, you
Yeah, well,
know?
it's a Dunning-Kruger effect, right? So, you ever heard of that? And
Yeah. But
again,
but
I'm
go
speaking
into it for
from
people that don't
I'm
know.
speaking from a place of personal experience as well, and I have to
Okay.
acknowledge the fact that I'm not an expert in this. I'm just trying to bring experts together
I love
and
this
and have
though.
my own have my own education on it.
Yeah.
But so the Dunning-Kruger effect, imagine a graph like this, and this is how much
Yep.
you actually know, right? And then
Uh-huh.
this is the dependent variable, right? So this is how much you think you know. So how
Uh-huh.
much you think you know, how much you know. The graph kind of goes like this. First of all, you don't know anything about the subject. You don't think you know anything about the subject. Then, as soon as you start learning a bit, you think you know everything about the subject. Then you learn little bit more, and you have to get past this point, and all of a sudden you realize that you don't know very much about it at all. Actually, know more than you think you know at this point, but you realize that there's a lot more to learn. And then very slowly but surely you build expertise. And the crazy thing is that the peak of over here is the tallest point of the graph. So how much you think you know when you know very little is still higher than how much you think you know when you know very a lot.
Yeah.
And so those are usually the loud people.
Got them. Well, it make right. It makes it makes a lot of sense.
So again, I think you can get into a whole realm of conspiracy or this or that. I don't know if it's that helpful, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
Really, I think it's worth looking, understanding that people have good intentions, and simply
Right.
asking them to listen and also to hear them. And that's really the thing. It's just to hear these people. And once someone feels heard, they will most likely hear you too.
I love that. And do you feel so you have hope about
Yeah,
the
I have a
world
lot of
coming
hope.
together more
I
now
have
than
a
it was
lot.
the last 4 years. I do
I,
too. I
and
feel very
I
optimistic
think
about
the whole
everything.
4 years paradigm, look, I don't love the notion of last 4 years, this next 4 years, if only just because it can blame a very complicated and unbelievably wide and diverse society globally, honestly, on
Okay, yeah.
not only a single side, but a single person. And
Yeah,
I just
true.
don't think it's a very accurate way of looking at the world.
Okay.
You know, I think there's a plenty to move on from there, and we can look at the problems down in our actual local communities where we can have a bigger impact,
Yeah.
regardless of who is running the country, regardless of what position we are in the world.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So with your work at the UN, like this is something that you'll continue to do. This is like a passion project of yours because it's important.
Yeah, to be quite honest, I'm hoping that my work is noticed by someone that can do it better than I can,
Okay.
and I will end up acting again.
Okay.
Um, you know, my one of my heroes is this guy Cincinnatus. He was from ancient Rome back in the Republic days. At the time,
Yes.
Rome didn't have the full Italian peninsula. They were fighting the Samnites, I believe.
Okay.
Cincinnatus, I think he was a lower level member of the Senate at one point, but really what he was a farmer. And at the time, there was this idea of the classic farmer soldier when it was in Roman society. And tending to your farm and just being a family man, that was the honorable thing. He went down, he pleaded for his son. His son got in trouble to the rest of the Senate. They were so charmed by him. One thing led to another. They were fighting the Samnites, and they appointed him dictator. At the time, what happened is that you had a consulship, so there would be two people that ran the country. And when in times of trouble, it would go to one person. The one person would relieve themselves of duty, it would go back to two people and to the rest of the Senate. And what happened is that he fought off the Samnites. He rejected everything else. He relieved himself of duty, and he went back to his farm. And he was a symbol of Roman virtue in a lot of ways. Much later on in his life, he was elderly at this time. The plebeians and the it would be the plebeians and the plebeians. I'm forgetting my history here. They were fighting. So those that were the descendants of the original Senate under Romulus, which is not a real person, but whatever, and those that weren't descendants. So the Praetorians, Praetorians and the plebeians.
Okay.
They started having it out with one another. Rome was on brink of civil war, and they brought in Cincinnatus again. Originally, he said, "I don't want to go back. I want to tend to my farm." They said, "Well, you're the person that both sides respect." He put down the rebellion in around 2-3 weeks and went back to his farm and lived the rest of his days. I'm not him. I could never claim to be him. He was also a really big inspiration for George Washington, who did a pretty impressive thing when George Washington didn't run again for president after two terms, which was only a precedent, by the way, until FDR. FDR ran for more than 2 terms, then they made it into law. We forget just how important this idea of really believing in the country that we're in is for a country to be run well.
Yeah.
And my thing is that when it comes to my own life, taking that metaphor in my own life, I think the farm is acting to me. It's the thing I love doing. It's the thing I want to continue doing. And when it comes to, when it comes to something I feel like it's my duty to do, this feels like it, because I don't see too many other people really speaking on this issue in a way that's as open to being heard.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping someone else takes this mantle upon themselves, and I'll go back to acting. And when it comes to
I think you can do both.
Who knows? Maybe that's my life as well.
Well, yeah, because you talked about, these hiatuses during projects, and to keep yourself busy, keep yourself active. And our whole purpose of being on this planet is to provide value, to make a difference in people's lives. So you do that through entertaining them, to take them out of their everyday worries in their everyday life. And then through this, where you're helping people communicate and to kind of see the truth, so we can bridge the gap that's come between us. So you are living an absolute, in my opinion, God's purpose. So amen to you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I don't know what my future holds in that way. I do know that the one thing I want to continue doing is acting. I know that this other cause is really important to me.
Yeah.
And whether or not I'm a part of it or not, it will always be important to me. I don't particularly care if my face is on the fucking on the freaking pamphlet.
It's all right. I wrote a book with a fucking it. You're fine. Okay. Nothing's off limits on this show.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but no, I think it's great. I mean, you're obviously young, but you're extremely well spoken, and you're extremely smart, and you have a huge future
I paid her to
ahead
say
of you.
that.
Yeah, right. No, but you do have a bright future ahead of you. And I always tell people, through my own work is, have a vision, have a goal, but never have tunnel vision. Always be open, because you just don't know when you're in that abundant, positive mindset. Opportunities can come that you don't know where it's going to take you. So I always tell people, have that goal, have that vision, but be so open, because you just don't know what's going to happen. And that's so.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.